Once upon a time in the quiet town of Elmwood, a mysterious series of murders sent shockwaves through the community. It was a small, tight-knit community where everyone knew each other, and such violence was unheard of. The residents lived in fear, wondering who could be behind these heinous crimes. The first murder occurred on a cold winter night. Sarah Thompson, a young and promising artist, was found dead in her art studio. Her body was discovered by her best friend, Emma Johnson, who immediately called the police. Sarah had been stabbed multiple times, and the room was filled with an eerie silence. He arrived at the crime scene and meticulously examined every detail. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that the killer might have been someone Sarah knew. As the investigation unfolded, Detective Anderson began interviewing Sarah's friends, family, and acquaintances, hoping to find a clue that would lead him to the killer. As days turned into weeks, the town remained on edge. The community meetings were filled with worried faces, and the local newspaper was inundated with letters demanding answers. Another murder occurred. This time it was James Peterson, a respected businessman and a close friend of Sarah's. His body was discovered in his lavish mansion, and again, there were no signs of forced entry. Detective Anderson's frustration grew, and the pressure to solve the case intensified. He immersed himself in the investigation, studying every piece of evidence and connecting dots that others couldn't see. He interviewed witnesses, reviewed surveillance footage, and dug into the victims' backgrounds. There was a growing suspicion that these murders were not random acts of violence, but rather connected in some way. As the investigation unfolded, Detective Anderson discovered a common thread linking Sarah and James. They both frequented a local art gallery owned by Christopher Johnson, Emma's brother. Christopher was a talented artist himself, but had been struggling to make a name for himself in the art world. The detective's curiosity piqued, and he decided to delve deeper into Christopher's life. The pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. Detective Anderson learned that Christopher had a bitter rivalry with Sarah, who had recently gained recognition for her unique style. It seemed that Christopher's envy had driven him to commit the murders. The detective also discovered that James had discovered Christopher's secret, blackmailing him for a substantial sum of money. Convinced of Christopher's guilt, Detective Anderson confronted him. The intense interrogation led to a confession. Christopher admitted to the murders, explaining his twisted motivation and how jealousy and desperation had consumed him. The art gallery, which was once a place of creative expression, had become the breeding ground for envy, resentment, and ultimately, murder. The town of Elmwood heaved a collective sigh of relief as Christopher was apprehended and brought to justice. But the scars of the murders remained, serving as a reminder that even in the most idyllic places, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. Detective Anderson, forever changed by the case, vowed to protect his community and ensure that such heinous crimes would never happen again. The suspenseful tale of the Elmwood murders haunted the town for years to come, serving as a cautionary tale of how envy and obsession can drive someone to commit unspeakable acts. It also reminded the residents to be vigilant and to cherish the peace they once took for granted.